"Sir, step away from the fire pit. This is private property." That was the first thing the deputy said to me, standing on my own ranch beside the lake my grandfather had stocked with catfish 40 years ago. Red and blue lights flickered across the water, scattering a flock of ducks that had been dozing along the reeds. Their wings thundered in the night air, while the sharp glare of a flashlight cut across my face like I was some intruder caught red-handed. And there she was, Karen, standing at the shoreline in a silk robe, pearls glinting, and a smug little half-smile that said she'd finally gotten me. Let me tell you, there's nothing quite like being told you're trespassing on land your family paid off before half the neighborhood even existed. It's the kind of absurdity that makes your stomach churn and your brain click into record every detail mode. The air smelled like burnt cedar from my campfire, mixing with the faint chemical tang of Karen's perfume, which was so strong I swear it traveled across the lake ahead of her. I could see the binder in her hands, black, thick, and tabbed with color-coded stickies. Her Bible of HOA bylaws. She had brought it to the water like Moses coming down from the mountain, except instead of commandments it was a stack of photocopied nonsense she wielded like a weapon. The officer's flashlight lingered on me, then slid to Karen. "Ma'am, you're saying this gentleman is trespassing?" She straightened her robe as though the pearls around her neck gave her jurisdiction. "Correct. He has no right to camp here. The lake is managed under HOA common grounds. Page 32, Section 9. She flipped open her binder, shoving a laminated page toward the deputy like it was the U.S. Constitution. I couldn't help but laugh. Not a full laugh, more like one of those bitter huffs that escapes before you can stop it. "Officer, that lake is on my deed. I've got the survey maps in my truck. This isn't common ground, it's family land. She knows it." The deputy hesitated. I could see it in his face. He wasn't sure if he was dealing with a land dispute, a crazy neighbor, or some bored suburban tyrant in nightwear. That hesitation was exactly what Karen wanted. Confusion is her favorite weapon. She thrives on muddy waters, turning simple truths into complicated maybes. Now, to understand how we got here, you need the backstory. Karen had been gunning for me since the day I moved back to the ranch. Within 48 hours, I got my first HOA letter taped to my gate. "Unapproved structure, please remove within 7 days." The structure in question? My grandfather's old boat dock. A dock that had been there since before Karen even bought her stucco palace 2 streets over. I went to the HOA meeting to clear it up, but that turned into a circus. Karen sat at the head of the folding table, gavel in hand, talking over anyone who questioned her. She quoted bylaws that didn't exist, waved her binder like it was gospel, and scribbled my name into every agenda line. Noise complaint, unsanctioned fire pit, lawn maintenance. It was like I'd become her personal project. So, when I decided to spend a quiet weekend camping at my own lake tent pitched by the water, fire crackling under the stars, I knew she'd hate it. But I didn't think she'd go as far as calling the sheriff. "Sir," the deputy said again, lowering his flashlight just a little, "if you do have proof of ownership, it'd help us clear this up. You mind grabbing it?" Karen's eyes glinted. "Don't let him fetch anything. He'll claim anything's his." That did it. I stood up, brushing dirt off my jeans. "Karen, you've been trespassing on this lake for years. Don't think I don't know about the wine parties and the fishing tournaments. You think the tire ruts and empty beer cans just grew legs and walked out here?" Her face flushed crimson under the flashing lights. She wasn't used to being challenged in public, not like this. Usually she controlled the stage at HOA meetings, cutting off anyone who dared question her authority. Out here, with the sheriff watching, her script was falling apart. "Officer," she snapped, "this man is delusional. The HOA has jurisdiction. It's written right here." She jabbed at her binder again, but her hand shook. The deputy took a step back, one palm up. Okay. Let's keep this calm. Ma'am, I'll review your documents. Sir, if you've got your deed, we'll compare." That was my opening. I turned toward my truck, heart hammering, thinking this was about to be over, that I'd show the paper, Karen would choke on her binder, and everyone could go home. But just as I reached the tailgate, another set of headlights rolled up the gravel drive. 3 cars. Neighbors piling out in their pajamas, murmuring, clutching mugs of coffee like they were about to watch a midnight spectacle. And who was at the front? Karen's vice president, Donna, hauling another stack of paperwork and whispering something sharp into Karen's ear. The lake went silent, except for the hiss of my fire and the low chatter of onlookers. The deputy frowned, clearly realizing this wasn't just a simple call anymore. It was a neighborhood standoff. And me? I stood there with the deed folder in my hand, knowing this was only the beginning. Because when an HOA president calls the cops on you for camping at your own lake, you'd better believe she's got bigger plans in motion. And I was about to find out exactly how far she was willing to go. Look here, officer, the boundary runs straight through his so-called private lake. Karen's finger stabbed at a creased HOA map like it was holy scripture, but even from 3 feet away I could see the scale was off and the ink had bled from being photocopied one too many times. The deputy squinted under the cruiser's floodlight, eyebrows pulling together, while neighbors leaned in like they were ringside at a prize fight. My pulse thudded in my ears, but I stayed quiet long enough to savor the moment. Because in my hand, I held something better than her binder of bylaws. I had the deed, and 20 yards away, hammered into the earth, stood the surveyor's stake that proved every word of it. It's funny how people will believe whatever's repeated loudest, longest, and with the most confidence. That's Karen's gift. She doesn't argue, she proclaims. It's how she convinced an entire neighborhood that porch swings required board approval, that backyard tomato gardens were unsightly, and that the HOA $200 consulting fee was a normal expense. She drowns people in paper, confident no one will dig deep enough to catch her bluff. But tonight was different. Tonight I had a paper of my own. "Deputy," I said, stepping closer, "that map she's waving? That's the HOA community plot. Has nothing to do with my ranch. Here." I unfolded the thick envelope, letting the crisp deed catch the light. Original property line, recorded at the county courthouse. See the lake? Right here, fully mine. Karen let out a laugh that was 2 parts nerves, 1 part arrogance. That's ancient history. Things have changed. The HOA has since designated this as common property for resident use. She gestured toward the cluster of neighbors, her voice rising. Everyone here knows it. We've all enjoyed this lake for years. The murmurs kicked up then, half skeptical, half defensive. I could feel eyes shifting back and forth, weighing Karen's authority against the black and white ink in my hand. That's the thing about HOA politics. It's not about right or wrong. It's about who people believe has power. I led the deputy down to the shoreline, boots crunching on gravel. You see that? I pointed to a weathered wooden stake driven into the dirt, its orange survey tape flapping faintly in the breeze. County surveyor placed it there 10 years ago. My boundary runs 20 feet past this line, right into that oak tree. The lake's not community property, it's private. Always has been. The deputy crouched, brushing dirt off the base of the stake. He traced the markings with his finger, then glanced back at the map in Karen's hands. This doesn't line up, he muttered. Karen's heels clicked against the stones as she hurried after us, binder clutched like a shield. That stake means nothing. Stakes can be moved. Maps can be redrawn. The HOA has jurisdiction. End of discussion. End of discussion, I shot back. Karen, you can't just yell something into existence. This isn't your board meeting. You don't get to gavel reality into place. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. I could see the flicker in her eyes, panic, quickly smothered by indignation. The crowd behind us grew restless. Donna, her loyal vice president, whispered urgently in her ear, but Karen shoved her aside and raised her voice. Neighbors, don't be fooled. He's trying to keep us off land that belongs to all of us. Do you really want one man hoarding the lake when our children should be free to swim, to fish, to... Her little speech faltered as someone from the back shouted, Then why've you been holding private wine parties there without inviting the rest of us? The crowd chuckled, low and dangerous. Karen froze, binder halfway open before slamming it shut with a crack. The deputy straightened, clearly uncomfortable, like he'd stepped into a family feud with no easy out. I took a breath, lowering my voice for effect. This isn't about kids swimming or neighbors fishing. This is about Karen wanting control over something she doesn't own. And tonight, she called law enforcement to enforce rules that don't even exist. The deputy glanced at me, then at Karen, then back at the deed in his hand. All right, this is complicated. I'll need to file a report and maybe get county records involved. Karen's jaw tightened. She hated that word complicated. Complicated meant questions, delays, scrutiny. Complicated meant her word wasn't final. The fire popped behind us, sending a shower of sparks into the night. The smell of cedar smoke wrapped around everything, heavy and grounding. Even as the tension hung sharp as barbed wire, I could feel the neighbors watching, recalibrating their loyalties in real time. And for the first time all night, Karen didn't look like a queen with a binder. She looked cornered. Still, she wasn't beaten. She snapped her binder shut, pearls catching the cruiser's floodlight, and said, "If the county gets involved, then so will the HOA legal counsel. This isn't over." The deputy sighed, tucking my deed under his arm. "Sir, ma'am, we're going to need to revisit this once I can confirm the records. For now, no one touches anything until it's sorted out." I nodded, but my gut twisted, because I knew Karen well enough to know she wouldn't wait for the county. She'd be scheming before the deputy even left the driveway. As the crowd dispersed, their whispers trailing off into the night, Karen lingered at the shoreline, binder pressed tight against her chest. Her glare cut through the darkness and landed square on me, and in that glare, I could see at the wheels already turning. She wasn't going to let survey stakes or deeds stop her. She was going to rewrite the story until the truth bent in her favor. And I had no idea just how far she was willing to go next. Funny thing, Karen, if this lake belongs to the HOA, then whose tire tracks are those leading right up to the water's edge? Her face drained of color as the deputy's pen froze mid-scribble. The crowd of neighbors turned toward the dirt path, where dawn light revealed deep grooves in the mud and a scatter of aluminum chair legs glinting in the weeds. It was like the earth itself had flipped sides and joined my argument. The air was damp with the smell of wet grass and burnt cedar from last night's fire, and every eye shifted to Karen, waiting for her explanation. She had called me a trespasser, but the evidence was already betraying her. I didn't plan for this mic-drop moment. Sometimes the truth has a way of setting itself on stage without needing an invitation. All I had done was wake up early, pour black coffee into a chipped thermos, and walk down to the shoreline. That's when I saw the ruts, fresh and ugly, carved into my property like scars. Folding chairs were half sunk in the mud, cigarette butts floated along the reeds, and a soggy HOA newsletter lay plastered against a rock. Not mine. Not from me. Proof that while Karen was busy accusing me of breaking rules, she and her entourage had been throwing their own secret lake parties. I called the deputy before sunrise, told him to come back out. By the time he arrived, neighbors had already gathered again, drawn like moths to the flame of scandal. Karen strutted down in full battle attire this time. Pressed slacks, blazer, and pearls, binder clutched tight. But even before she opened her mouth, the evidence on the ground was louder than anything she could say. "This doesn't prove anything," she snapped, waving a manicured hand at the mess. "Kids cut through here all the time. Teenagers, drifters. Anyone could have left this." I smiled, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Then maybe you can explain why your HOA secretary emailed me this photo last month." I tapped the screen, enlarging a shot of Karen and Donna, clinking wine glasses beside the lake with a string of lanterns glowing behind them. Or why half your board RSVP'd to the so-called planning retreat that somehow took place on my dock. Gasps rippled through the neighbors like wind across the water. Someone muttered, "I knew it," while another whispered, "She said it was a fundraiser." The deputy leaned closer to my phone, lips twitching as he scrolled through timestamps, names, even a screenshot of the HOA's own group chat bragging about lake privileges. Karen's binder snapped open, pages fluttering like frantic wings. This is irrelevant. The lake belongs to the community. If board members used it, it was to benefit residents. Outreach, planning, morale. Morale? I cut in. Is that what you call drinking Chardonnay on someone else's property? The laugh that bubbled up from the crowd wasn't friendly. It was sharp, the kind that says the emperor's clothes are gone and everyone can finally admit it. Donna tugged at Karen's sleeve, hissing something urgent, but Karen yanked free. Her eyes darted from the deputy's notebook to the neighbors' faces, searching for loyalty. For the first time, she found none. Now, let me backtrack for a second. Karen's entire reign had been built on fear and paperwork. She'd flooded our mailboxes with warning letters that looked like court summonses. Violation, improper fence color. Violation, garage door left open after sunset. Every notice came with a thinly veiled threat of fines, liens, or worse. People paid up, not because they believed in her authority, but because no one wanted to be dragged into the mud. But here she was, literally dragged into it by her own tire tracks. And the neighbors who once cowered at her letters were suddenly realizing she was no enforcer. She was just another trespasser. The deputy cleared his throat, tapping his pen against the page. Ma'am, I'll need statements from you and your board members regarding use of this property. If what I'm seeing here holds up, it looks like we've got a case of misrepresentation and possibly trespass. Karen's head whipped toward him. You can't be serious. You're taking his side? He's twisting facts, showing cherry-picked photos. None of this will hold up. I stepped closer, lowering my voice just enough that the crowd had to lean in. Karen, the only thing that won't hold up is your story. Her jaw clenched. The pearls at her throat trembled with each shaky breath. For once, she didn't have a comeback ready. She just stood there, binder clutched like a lifeline, as the deputy turned fully toward me. Sir, he said, I'm going to need copies of your deed, those photos, and any correspondence you've got. If the HOA knowingly misled residents about property rights, that's a matter we'll be escalating. The words hit the air like fireworks. Neighbors murmured, some in disbelief, others in outright delight. Karen's empire, built on binders and fear, was cracking under its own weight. But I knew better than to celebrate too soon. Karen wasn't the type to retreat quietly. She'd already lost control of the moment, yes, but not the war. As the deputy packed his notes, I caught Karen staring at me across the lake, her glare sharper than barbed wire. Behind her eyes wasn't defeat. It was calculation. And I had the sinking feeling that if she couldn't win this on the ground, she'd take the fight somewhere bigger, somewhere nastier. The kind of place where binders turn into lawsuits,